A talented chef fleeing her abusive marriage boarded the wrong bus and sat beside a mysterious man who turned out to be a best-selling author. What happened next will leave you speechless. Please stop, I didn't mean to burn the soup. The ceramic bowl shattered against the wall, spraying hot liquid everywhere. Before Elena could duck, Roberto's palm connected with her cheek with a sharp crack that echoed through their small apartment kitchen. The metallic taste of blood filled her mouth as she stumbled backward, her hand instinctively covering the burning sensation spreading across her face. Mama! A terrified voice pierced the silence. 7-year-old Sophia stood frozen in the doorway, her school backpack still strapped to her shoulders, brown eyes wide with shock. She clutched her favorite stuffed rabbit against her chest, the same rabbit Elena had sewn by hand during happier times. Roberto's face twisted with irritation as he turned toward the child. His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Get to your room. Now. Sophia's lower lip trembled, but she obeyed, her small feet pattering quickly down the narrow hallway. Elena heard the bedroom door close with a soft click, followed by muffled sobs that made her heart shatter into a million pieces. Elena pressed her palm against her swollen cheek, staring at the man she once thought she'd love forever. The man who used to bring her wildflowers and call her his beautiful chef. Now all she saw was a stranger wearing Roberto's face, someone who had systematically destroyed her confidence, her friendships, and her dreams one cruel word at a time. Clean this mess up, Roberto muttered, stepping over the broken ceramic pieces. I'm going out. The front door slammed shut, leaving Elena alone with the wreckage of their evening and the sound of Sophia's quiet crying from down the hall. Elena sank to her knees, mechanically picking up the sharp fragments while her mind raced. This couldn't be her life. This couldn't be the future she wanted for Sophia. The little girl who once giggled while helping her mother bake cookies now flinched whenever voices were raised. That night, after Roberto passed out on the couch with an empty beer bottle balanced on his chest, Elena made a decision that would change everything. She moved through their small apartment like a ghost, gathering essentials with practiced silence. Years of walking on eggshells had taught her which floorboards creaked and how to open drawers without making a sound. Into an old canvas bag went Sophia's favorite clothes, the stuffed rabbit, Elena's grandmother's recipe book, and the small amount of cash she'd been secretly saving from her part-time job at the local diner. Her hands shook as she folded Sophia's tiny sweaters, each piece of clothing a reminder of the innocent life she was about to uproot. She crept into Sophia's room, where the little girl lay curled up in a ball, still wearing her school clothes from that day. Elena gently shook her daughter's shoulder. Mija, wake up, she whispered. We're going on a special trip. Sophia's eyes fluttered open, confusion clouding her features. Where are we going, Mama? Somewhere safe, Elena promised, helping Sophia into her jacket. Just you and me. Within an hour, they were walking through the empty streets toward the bus station, their footsteps echoing off the quiet buildings. Elena's heart pounded with each step, terrified that Roberto would wake up and discover their absence. At the station, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the nearly empty waiting area. Elena approached the ticket counter with trembling hands, Sophia pressed close to her side. I need 2 tickets on the next bus leaving the city, she told the clerk, not caring about the destination. She just needed to get as far away as possible. Phoenix, Arizona, departing in 15 minutes, the clerk replied. That'll be $68. Elena nodded, counting out crumpled bills from her bag. Phoenix wasn't where she'd planned to go, she'd hoped to reach her cousin Maria in San Diego, but desperation didn't allow for preferences. The bus was nearly empty in the pre-dawn hours. Elena chose seats near the back, settling Sophia by the window with her rabbit. As the vehicle pulled away from the station, Elena finally allowed herself to breathe. Mama, are we running away? Sophia asked in a small voice. Elena wrapped her arm around her daughter, pulling her close. We're going towards something better, Mija. Sometimes that's the same thing. As the bus hummed down the darkened highway, Elena watched familiar landmarks disappear into the night. With each mile, she felt the invisible chains around her chest loosening slightly. Hours later, as sunrise painted the desert landscape in shades of gold and orange, Sophia had fallen asleep against Elena's shoulder. The bus made a rest stop at a small diner, and Elena decided to stretch their legs and get some food. When they reboard, Elena noticed their seats had been taken by a family with several small children. The bus was now full, and the only available seat was next to a man near the middle. "Excuse me," Elena said quietly, "is this seat taken?" The man looked up from his laptop and Elena was struck by his gentle green eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He appeared to be in his early 30s, with sandy brown hair slightly mussed from travel. A worn leather messenger bag sat at his feet, and several notebooks were scattered across his lap. "Please, sit down," he said, quickly gathering his papers to make room. His voice was warm and kind, nothing like the harsh tones Elena had grown accustomed to hearing. "Thank you," she murmured, helping Sophia settle by the window again. The man smiled at Sophia, who peeked shyly at him over her rabbit's ears. "That's a very nice bunny you have there." "Her name is Esperanza," Sophia whispered. "It means hope." "That's a beautiful name," the man replied. "I'm Thomas." "What's your name?" "Sophia, and this is my mama, Elena." Elena felt heat rise to her cheeks as Thomas's gaze met hers. She quickly adjusted her scarf, hoping to hide the bruising that was probably visible despite her careful application of concealer that morning. Stories like this remind us that hope can appear when we least expect it. If tales of courage and second chances touch your heart like they do mine, please subscribe for more inspiring stories that celebrate the strength of the human spirit. "Are you traveling far?" Thomas asked gently, seeming to sense Elena's nervousness. "We're starting over," Elena replied carefully. "In Phoenix." Thomas nodded with understanding, not pressing for details. New beginnings can be scary, but they can also be wonderful. As the bus continued its journey through the desert, Elena found herself relaxing slightly in Thomas's presence. He had a calm energy about him, speaking softly and never making sudden movements. When Sophia grew restless, he entertained her with simple drawing games on the back of napkins. "What do you do for work?" Elena asked during one of their quiet conversations while Sophia napped. "I'm a writer," Thomas replied. "I write books for children, actually. Stories about kids who overcome challenges and discover their own strength." Elena's eyes widened with interest. Sophia loves stories. "I used to make them up for her while I cooked dinner." "You're a chef?" "I was," Elena said, her voice growing wistful. "I used to work in restaurants before Sophia was born. Now I just cook at a small diner, but I dream of having my own place someday. Somewhere I could create the kind of food that brings families together." Thomas studied her face with genuine interest. "What kind of food would you cook?" Elena's eyes lit up as she described her grandmother's recipes, the fusion of traditional Mexican dishes with modern techniques she'd learned in culinary school. As she spoke, her hands moved expressively, and Thomas could see the passion burning beneath her quiet exterior. "You should pursue that dream," Thomas said earnestly. "The world needs more people who understand that food is about love, not just sustenance." Elena felt tears prick her eyes. It had been so long since someone had encouraged her dreams instead of dismissing them. When the bus finally pulled into Phoenix in the late afternoon, Elena felt a mixture of relief and terror. She had no plan beyond getting away, no place to stay, and very little money left. Thomas seemed to sense her anxiety as they gathered their belongings. "Elena," he said quietly, "I know we just met, but I have a friend here who runs a shelter for women and children. It's a safe place, and they help people get back on their feet. Would you like me to call her?" Elena's pride wanted to refuse, but one look at Sophia's tired face made her nod gratefully. "Yes, please." Thomas made the call while they waited in the station. Within an hour, a warm woman named Carmen arrived to pick them up. She had kind eyes and spoke to Sophia in gentle Spanish, immediately putting them both at ease. "Thank you," Elena told Thomas as they prepared to leave. "I don't know how to repay your kindness." Thomas handed her a business card. "You don't need to repay anything. But if you ever want to talk, or if Sophia wants to hear some stories, please call me." Elena clutched the card like a lifeline, watching Thomas disappear into the crowd before following Carmen to her car. The shelter was nothing like Elena had imagined. Instead of a cold, institutional building, Carmen led them to a converted Victorian house with a wraparound porch and flower gardens. Inside, children's artwork covered the walls, and the smell of homemade bread filled the air. "We have a room ready for you and Sophia," Carmen explained. "And tomorrow, we'll talk about your options. There's no pressure, no timeline. You stay as long as you need to feel safe and ready for the next step." That night, as Sophia slept peacefully in a real bed for the first time in months without flinching at every sound, Elena stood by the window looking out at the city lights. She pulled Thomas's business card from her pocket and read it again. Thomas Mitchell, children's author. A week passed at the shelter, and Elena began to feel human again. She helped in the kitchen, cooking meals that reminded the other women of home. Sophia made friends with the other children and started smiling again. Elena finally worked up the courage to call Thomas. They met at a small cafe near the shelter, and Sophia's face lit up when she saw him. "Thomas," she exclaimed, running to hug his legs. "I missed you." "I missed you too, little one," Thomas said, lifting her up. "Have you been taking good care of your mama?" Over coffee and pastries, Elena found herself opening up to Thomas about her marriage, the abuse, and the fear that had consumed her life for so long. Thomas listened without judgment, occasionally asking gentle questions but never pushing for more than she was ready to share. "I want to start over," Elena said finally. "I want to cook again, really cook. But I don't know how." Thomas was quiet for a moment, then pulled out his phone. "I have an idea. There's someone you should meet." He made a call, speaking quietly for several minutes before hanging up. "There's a restaurant owner named Miguel Santos. He's been looking for a sous chef, but more importantly, he's known for giving people second chances. Would you be interested in talking to him?" Elena's heart raced with a mixture of hope and terror. "I haven't worked in a real kitchen in years. What if I'm not good enough anymore?" "You are good enough," Thomas said firmly. "I can see it in the way you talk about food, the way your whole face lights up. That passion doesn't just disappear." The interview with Miguel took place the next day. Elena was terrified, but Thomas offered to watch Sophia, giving her one less thing to worry about. Miguel's restaurant, called Corazon, was everything Elena had dreamed of: warm, welcoming, with an open kitchen where diners could watch the magic happen. Miguel himself was a sturdy man in his 50s with kind eyes and hands that bore the scars of decades in professional kitchens. "Thomas tells me you have a gift," Miguel said after they'd talked for an hour. "I don't just need someone who can follow recipes. I need someone who understands that cooking is about feeding souls, not just bodies." Elena demonstrated her skills, preparing a simple but elegant dish that combined traditional flavors with modern presentation. As she cooked, years of suppressed creativity flowed through her hands. Miguel watched silently, occasionally nodding with approval. "When can you start?" he asked when she finished. Elena nearly cried with relief. "Whenever you need me." "How about tomorrow? We'll start you part-time while you get settled, and we'll see where it goes from there." Over the following weeks, Elena threw herself into her work with a passion she'd forgotten she possessed. Miguel was a patient teacher, helping her rebuild confidence while pushing her to grow. The other kitchen staff welcomed her warmly, creating the supportive environment she'd always craved. Sophia thrived too, attending a nearby school where she quickly made friends. The shelter had become a temporary home, but Elena was beginning to see a path toward independence. Thomas became a regular part of their lives, taking Sophia to the zoo on weekends and meeting Elena for coffee after her shifts. He never pushed for more than friendship, but Elena found herself looking forward to their conversations more than she cared to admit. One evening, after a particularly busy dinner service, Elena found Thomas waiting for her outside the restaurant. "How did it go tonight?" he asked as they walked toward his car. "Miguel let me create a special dish," Elena said, her eyes shining with pride. "It was my grandmother's mole recipe, but I added my own twist. It sold out in 2 hours." Thomas stopped walking and turned to face her. "Elena, that's incredible. You're incredible." Something in his tone made Elena look up at him, and she saw an emotion in his eyes that made her heart skip. "Thomas." I know this might be too soon, he said quietly. And I know you're still healing. But I need you to know that watching you rediscover your strength, your passion, it's been the most beautiful thing I've ever witnessed. You inspire me every day. Elena felt tears well up in her eyes. I was so broken when we met. You were never broken, Thomas said, gently touching her cheek. You were just waiting for the right moment to shine again. 3 months later, Elena had saved enough money to move into a small apartment near Sophia's school. It wasn't much, just 2 bedrooms and a tiny kitchen, but it was theirs, and it was safe. Thomas helped them move, along with Carmen and several friends from the restaurant. As Elena unpacked her grandmother's recipe book, she felt the weight of possibility settling around her like a warm embrace. Mama, Sophia said that night as Elena tucked her into her new bed, are we home now? Elena kissed her daughter's forehead, breathing in the sweet scent of her hair. Yes, Mija. We're home. 6 months later, Miguel made Elena head chef of Corazone's weekend brunch service. She created a menu that blended comfort food with sophisticated techniques, and the restaurant quickly gained a reputation as one of Phoenix's hidden gems. Thomas's latest children's book, inspired by Sophia's story of courage, became a bestseller. He donated a portion of the proceeds to the shelter that had saved Elena and Sophia, ensuring other families would have the same chance at a new beginning. One evening, as Elena finished prep for the next day's service, she found Thomas waiting in the dining room with a picnic basket. What's this? She asked, wiping her hands on her apron. I thought we could watch the sunset from the mountains, Thomas said. Sophia's having a sleepover at her friend's house, so we have the evening to ourselves. They drove to a scenic overlook outside the city, spreading a blanket on the rocky ground as the sky began to turn shades of pink and orange. Thomas had packed wine and sandwiches, but Elena couldn't concentrate on the food. Thomas, she began, I need to tell you something. He turned to face her, concern flickering across his features. What is it? When I boarded that bus 6 months ago, I thought my life was over. I thought I was just surviving, running from one nightmare toward an uncertain future. Elena's voice grew stronger as she continued. But meeting you, finding my passion again, building a real home for Sophia, you helped me realize I wasn't just surviving. I was becoming who I was always meant to be. Thomas reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers. Elena. I love you, she said simply. I love your kindness, your patience, the way you see the best in everyone. I love how you make Sophia laugh and how you believe in my dreams even when I don't believe in myself. Thomas's eyes filled with tears as he pulled her closer. I love you too, he whispered against her hair. I've loved you since that first day on the bus when you held Sophia so protectively and I could see the strength in your eyes even though you were scared. As the sun set behind the mountains, painting the desert in brilliant colors, Thomas pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. I know it might seem too soon, he said, his voice shaking slightly, but I can't imagine my future without you and Sophia in it. Will you marry me? Elena's answer was yes before he'd even finished asking. Their wedding took place a year later in the garden behind Corazon, surrounded by the extended family they'd created, Carmen and the women from the shelter, Miguel and the restaurant staff, Sophia's teachers and friends, and Thomas's fellow writers who had become Elena's friends too. Sophia served as both flower girl and ring bearer, wearing a dress Elena had sewn by hand and carrying Esperanza the rabbit as her good luck charm. When the officiant asked if anyone objected to the union, Sophia stood up in her little white chair and announced, I think this is the best idea ever, making everyone laugh through their tears. Elena wore her grandmother's pearl necklace and a simple white dress she'd bought with her first bonus from the restaurant. As she and Thomas exchanged vows under a canopy of twinkling lights, she thought about the terrified woman who had boarded a bus with nothing but hope and a determination to protect her child. I promise to support your dreams, Thomas said, his voice clear and strong, to create a home where Sophia can grow up safe and loved, and to remind you every day that you are worthy of all the happiness in the world. Elena's voice shook with emotion as she made her own promises. I promise to trust in our love, to never forget how far we've come, and to build a life with you that honors both our past struggles and our future joy. When they kissed as husband and wife, Sophia cheered so loudly that the entire wedding party burst into applause. 2 years later, Elena stood in the kitchen of her own restaurant, a small but perfect space she'd opened with Thomas's support and Miguel's mentorship. Esperanza served breakfast and lunch, specializing in the comfort foods that had sustained Elena through her darkest times, elevated with the techniques she'd mastered through years of passionate work. The walls were covered with Sophia's artwork and photos of the women Elena had helped through her non-profit organization, which provided culinary training and job placement for domestic abuse survivors. Thomas worked from a small office in the back of the restaurant, writing stories inspired by the resilient people he met through Elena's work. His latest book featured a young rabbit who helped lost animals find their way home, Sophia's favorite story. As Elena watched her daughter help Thomas set up for the children's story hour they hosted every Saturday morning, she marveled at how much their lives had changed. Sophia was confident and happy, excelling in school and talking about becoming either a chef like her mama or a writer like Thomas when she grew up. "Sometimes I still can't believe this is real," Elena confided to Carmen, who had become like a mother to her. "Believe it, Mija," Carmen replied, squeezing Elena's hand. "You created this life with your courage and your heart. You deserve every bit of happiness you've found." That evening, as Elena closed the restaurant after a busy Saturday, she found Thomas and Sophia waiting for her with another picnic basket. "Where are we going this time?" Elena asked, laughing as Sophia practically bounced with excitement. "It's a surprise," Sophia announced. "But Thomas says it's somewhere special where wishes come true." They drove to the same mountain overlook where Thomas had proposed, but this time Sophia had planned the evening. She'd packed Elena's favorite foods and had even convinced Thomas to bring his guitar. As the three of them sat under the stars, sharing stories and listening to Thomas play Sophia's favorite songs, Elena felt a peace she'd never thought possible. Her daughter was safe and thriving. Her restaurant was successful beyond her wildest dreams. Her husband was her best friend and biggest supporter. But more than any of that, she had found herself again, the woman who had been buried under years of fear and self-doubt, the creative spirit who saw magic in simple ingredients, the mother who could protect her child not just by running away from danger but by building something beautiful and strong. "What are you thinking about, Mama?" Sophia asked, noticing Elena's thoughtful expression. Elena pulled her daughter close, looking out over the lights of the city where she'd built her new life. "I'm thinking about how sometimes the wrong bus takes you exactly where you need to go." Thomas wrapped his arms around both of them, and they sat in comfortable silence, three people who had found each other by chance and chosen to build a family by love. Years later, when Sophia was grown and writing her own stories, she would begin her memoir with a simple sentence: "My mother taught me that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision to keep moving forward despite it." And Elena, reading her daughter's words, would remember that terrified woman boarding a bus in the pre-dawn darkness and feel nothing but gratitude for the journey that had brought them all home. If this story of courage, second chances, and unexpected love touched your heart, please take a moment to like and share it with someone who needs to be reminded that hope is always possible. Subscribe to Heartwarming Tales for more stories that celebrate the resilience of the human spirit and the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds. Because sometimes the most beautiful chapters of our lives begin when we find the courage to turn the page. New inspiring stories every week that prove love always finds a way.